Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us tonight, analyzing the president's speech after his inauguration earlier today. Remember, he begins his second term officially together with Deputy President William Ruto. Now, he talked quite a bit in detail about some of his plans for the country. He outlined his plans for education and for health as well. I would like us, if we can, to just listen to the two of them, if possible. You can let me know. NHIF and education, and then we can speak about, his plans in general for this country, because he talked about manufacturing, he talked about power tariffs in the country quite a bit. But let's just listen to what he had to say about the health sector and education, and then we'll be back with my panel.
NHIF cover. Within 5 years, my administration will ensure that 13 million Kenyans and their dependents are beneficiaries of this scheme. This vision will be driven by a complete reconfiguration of the National Hospital Insurance Fund and reform of the laws governing private insurance companies. Fourthly, we have reformed our education system. We have restored the credibility of our exams. We have made education the great equalizer by removing exam fees, by providing digital learning devices, and by reviving our technical and vocational training institutes.
All right, so that's what he said about health and education. But like we said, he discussed at great length a number of other issues, to do with the economy, with the creation of jobs. So, Kakai, I'd just like to begin with you. In general, with respect to the plans he's laid out for the country, talk to us about what that will be like for this presidency this time around, because, he doesn't have any of the other encumbrances that he did before, like the ICC. So what do you think will be his main legacy as he goes?
I think let's put this into perspective. If you listen to the speech that were there were quite a number of things that the president spoke about. But out of those things, I was keenly listening, and I summarized them into 7 key pillars that the president was trying to address.
Okay, I hope you can't go into the 7, just
of the 7,
time. Yes,
you have already talked about the 2.
Yes.
And of the 2 is about education and about the issues of healthcare. Now, on education, I think that you should understand that the Jubilee government has tried in the last 5 years to try and expand the issue of free primary education, and are now moving into issues of free secondary education. These are the basic things that a Kenyan child, a Kenyan student needs. Because remember, education is a human rights aspect. Education is guaranteed in the Constitution. Education is the responsibility of the state to ensure that his child or his children go to school and get education. So I think that the focus, moving away from free primary education, moving to free secondary education, is a good step in the way that he wants to consolidate the gains that he achieved in the previous regime and ensure that now the second term, as he's going to complete his term, he consolidates the issues of secondary education and issues of free primary education. So I think it's a milestone. And imagine the number of the youth who have not had a chance to go to school are able now to say, I can go to school and get education. And it's so timely that it's coming at a time when the results have just been released. So then it gives logic to the flow of his thinking. So it's very critical that he spoke about the issues of that. When it comes to the other key component that he spoke about, he went down into what an ordinary Matiang'i will benefit. Remember, he went into issues of statistics. How many Kenyans do I want to reach out to? And he's talking about 13 million Kenyans should be able to benefit from NHIF in terms of healthcare. And he went up further and classified of a desire to have 100% universal healthcare. So it means, therefore, remember that these are fundamental human rights. The Constitution talks about health as a human right. The Constitution talks about education as a human right. Now he's breaking them down into ensuring that they communicate to the ordinary Matiang'i to see how he will be able, with his government, to achieve these objectives. Now, these are his aspirations. These are his dreams. These are what were in his manifesto. Because remember, we talked about his manifesto. And now he's putting them into action. It is in the speech. What is going to be very important now is now once he forms a cabinet, we want to see how a Minister of Education, a Minister of Health will now translate these things to the benefit of the ordinary Mwananchi.
All right. Javas, do you think he captured, all of the issues, jobs, health, education? Do you think he tackled them all in a way that... and I remember this from the first manifesto of 2013. They were extremely specific. And then, that came to bite them when it came to accountability for all of those things. Everyone remembers the 5 stadia. When they were launching their second manifesto, they were not as specific into detail. But today he has been talking about 500,000 homes, 13 million people getting access to universal health care. What are your thoughts on that?
It is altogether proper and pleasant that the president addressed himself to all these fundamental issues, and one of them being education, for example, which is the taproot for socioeconomic transformation, not only in our society, but in any society, any community, and any country. And looking at it that way, of course, we realize that the president has tried to demonstrate, and through word, that he's moving beyond the poetry of the campaigns to the prose of governance. And knowing that there is so much expectation of him and his administration in terms of the legacy that he will leave behind, having served as president of Kenya for 2 terms. Realize, too, that beyond, for example, the first term and the Jubilee Manifesto of that period and the Jubilee Manifesto of this second term, the president should take note, and even his administration moving forward in terms of service and delivery, that what he promised in the first term, even in the realm of education, he did not deliver the whole of it to the satisfaction of all Kenyans. And that's why there were all these political issues and whirlwinds. During this period, he has got a challenge to make sure that he leaves a legacy so permanent that he will be celebrated for having served as president. And he even gave the example, for example, of the good lady Goldaline from Kakamega, who led the nation in a good performance. But take note, for example, that even as he spoke to matters of rural electrification to make sure that each school, for example, has got access to electricity, not every school to this moment has got, 1, electricity or access to electricity, 2, the issue of tablets or computerization, laboratories, etc., of all those schools. That is something that he may want to make sure that he delivers on. But moving forward, he also takes note that this nation, and any nation for that matter, a nation that is healthy is a nation that is willing and ready to work for economic transformation and progress. When he spoke to matters of NHIF, for example, and the 13 million Kenyans that need to access that service, realize that there is the small controversy, the small issue of only 4 visits per year for that service. That is still a conundrum in matters of that facility that NHIF service is. It is proper that in terms of the wholesomeness of health insurance, the president, in his execution throughout this 5-year term, he makes sure that that issue is resolved, and not just 13 million Kenyans. If we are more than 45 million Kenyans, what about the other Kenyans that fall out of the 13 million that he has spoken about? Okay. Is it that they do not, or they do not warrant, or they're not worthy of such kind of coverage? So the Jubilee administration needs to make sure that health becomes an issue of priority in terms of execution, that each Kenyan feels safe, healthy, and progressive in terms of the health policies and performance of the Jubilee administration.
All right. I would like us to conclude our discussion. Certainly so many issues that he got into, but that we will continue, of course, to discuss. So can't get into all of it in just an hour. Kakai, I'd like to start with your closing comments on where we go from here, and with seeing some particular jibes that were in there, perhaps against the opposition, but then also reaching out at the same time, what was said about getting out of the coup and overcoming what happened in 2007, 2008. The electoral period is over, outlining his plans as well for the country over the next 5 years. Just give us your closing comments as to where we go from here. The speech has been made, but then what would you, if you were to speak to the president, do first thing tomorrow?
I think the electoral contest is over and done. It's now dusted, it's finished. The legal contest is finished. What is now remaining is a few issues or challenges that revolve around political contest. And remember, politics, unfortunately, unlike the electoral process and legal process, politics, unfortunately, has got no time limits or no time bounds. And so we will continue having these political challenges forever and ever. But what I will then expect us to have is for him now to consolidate what he has promised Kenyans in his speech, which, of course, is modeled 100% from his manifesto. And remember, the president and the Jubilee Party went to Kenyans with this manifesto, sought for votes from the same Kenyans, marketed a product and said that this is the things that we want to deliver as Jubilee, give us the votes. Now they have the mandate. Now they need to translate now what they promised Kenyans to do and now actually perform the functions. So in other words, what I'm saying, I expect him now to form a very lean and competent cabinet, which will be in a position to deliver this mandate. Because delivering these things, of course, is works in progress. And we need to find out that in the next 4 or 5 years, we should be now benchmarking them and asking Jubilee Party, what did you promise and what have you achieved? So I think it's a good thing. The other issue that I think we need to talk about is the issue that he talked about, sitting down or talking or reconciliation or reaching out to political parties that were in this contest. Because he brought it up himself and he said, I'm willing to incorporate you, I'm willing to work with you, I'm willing to give you a chance, I'm willing to incorporate your manifesto, I'm willing to adapt your agendas. Because maybe not what he said in his manifesto is inclusive of what Kenyans expect out of him. But that's the package that Jubilee Party had in terms of their manifesto. So I expect him then to reach out as much as he can on these manifestos, on these ideas, incorporate them in government, and see how best we can push this country forward.
Okay, thank you. Javas, going forward, there's the big issue of cohesion. There were 2 separate events today in this country. There was an inauguration, and, you know, there's another group of people who, in this country, Kenyans, by right, by birth, who don't feel like they belong. If it were you, what would you do as President Uhuru Kenyatta starting tomorrow, 8 in the morning?
Well, as President Lincoln said in his time, and I quote, that the bonds of brotherhood may have strained, but must not be broken. Recalling the words of the same president during the Gettysburg Address, he said in his definition of democracy that a government of the people, by the people, and with the people should and must not perish from the earth. President Kenyatta, if I were to speak to him, I would appeal to him to reconnect with the words, for example, of Abraham Lincoln, that if this government has to be of the people, with the people, and for the people, then that collective sense of feeling, aspiration, and homeliness should come from the office of the president himself. Realize, too, that our constitution terms the president as the unifier of the nation. It would be proper then, moving forward, starting today, that the president realizes that he needs to make every Kenyan feels that he belongs to this country and that his leadership will not leave any person behind, whether it is young or old. And that is why, as he may move to reconstitute his cabinet, it depends on the kind of individuals that he will select, whether they are at the cabinet position or the principal secretaries, individuals who will make sure that his administration delivers on matters of cohesion, matters of belonging, matters of collective identity, and all of us need to feel that we are one nation and a God. And that is why the president's actions beyond words will count the most starting this day.
Okay, thank you very much, Javas Bigambo Kakai Kissinger, for your thoughts, your insights into the president's speech and his official start today as president of the nation for the next 5 years. I thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts tonight. That is the big story. Thanks for watching. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Good night.